Hi everyone, my name is Marita Rodriguez and this is my case summary report on the case of Elizabeth Holmes. So what is white collar crime and what does a white collar criminal look like? These crimes are nonviolent and they're committed by business or government professionals, and their whole main goal is their own personal financial gain and also power gain. These criminals are well educated, they are trusted, and they have no previous criminal history, which is one of the reasons why they are so trusted. Another thing is that these criminals are completely different than the traditional criminals that you can just look at someone and assume that they have some kind of criminal history. Some examples of white collar crime are fraud, corruption, deceitfulness, abuse of power, and trust for financial gain. So this is Elizabeth Holmes. She started her own company and it was called Theranos. And 2003, when she was 19 years old, she dropped out of college and she wanted to be a very successful person. Elizabeth had an obsession with Steve Jobs and becoming the next Steve Jobs. She would dress like him in, for example, these turtlenecks. That was her like little staple outfit. She would change her voice to make it appear more masculine because she thought that would get people's attention and respect. And this unhealthy obsession is what caused this pressure to succeed in her case. This is the revolutionary device that she promised the world. It did not work. It was meant to, with a single prick of a finger, it was supposed to run numerous tests, medical tests, and help people live healthier lives. But it actually did the opposite because it didn't work and she didn't want to admit that it didn't work. She was putting a lot of people's lives and health in jeopardy. Theory that I talked about in my paper is Sutherland's differential association theory. Pretty much it says that people's criminal behavior is influenced through the interactions that they have with those closest to them. So their family, the friends, coworkers, and classmates. And that's, I always think of the saying, you are who you hang out with. In her case, Elizabeth was surrounded by a lot of successful people, and so she wanted to have that success and achieve it by any means. Merton's strain theory is a good example of how Elizabeth felt the pressure to be successful, and so she didn't see failure as an option in her case. Elizabeth also justified her actions, even though she knew the entire time that she was deceiving society and defrauding people. She justified all her actions by thinking that she was actually doing something that was going to benefit people once she figured out why her product was not working, which never happened. On this slide, you can see some FBI statistics regarding white collar crime and showing that California is one of the states that gets hit the most by white collar crime, and a total of $1.35 billion that were lost in 2024. And they mentioned that white collar crime is not violent, but it's not victimless because so many people's lives are affected. It just goes unchecked and unfounded. Elizabeth was ultimately arrested and held accountable for her deceitfulness and fraud. She was sentenced to 11 years in prison and forced to pay restitutions of $452 million to her investors. So currently, Elizabeth is still in prison. She's set to be released in 2032. And she actually was able to get married and have some kids. So she is a mother behind bars. But this case should warn people about the dangers of unchecked fraud, and especially because in her case it went on for a number of years. And my recommendations are to increase education, regulation, and accountability, and just learn from these cases because they provide a lot of information as far as how to improve and decrease white collar crime.